Since the release of Mario Maker 2, I personally spent over 3,000 hours in that game and had a lot of fun with it. SMM2 was the game that I would have expected the least to actually happen on Switch, which is why I was even more surprised and excited when it was actually announced back in 2019. However, there's a major problem. Despite the fact that millions of players worldwide were looking forward to the sequel of Mario Maker for Wii U, and all the new items and abilities we'll receive to build the Mario courses of our dreams, it seems like 1 year after its release, most of that excitement was already gone. That's why in this video I want to discuss why I think that Mario Maker 2 lost its popularity that quickly despite all the excitement before release, what I think could have been done better in order to keep the excitement of the game alive for a longer period of time, and what I want Nintendo to do better next time for a potential Mario Maker 3. So, let's go! What is up everybody, I'm Zaidu and I highly welcome you to this video. Right off the bat, just let me quickly clarify one important thing. Personally, I've been a huge fan of Mario Maker since the first game was released in 2015. Heck, Mario Maker for Wii U was even the reason why I bought a Wii U in the first place back then, and that's why I was really looking forward to a potential sequel of it when the Switch was released, and was very hyped when Mario Maker 2 was announced and actually became a thing in 2019. So I guess it's quite obvious that I was, and still am, a huge fan of the Mario Maker franchise, which is also why for me it was quite disappointing to see how Mario Maker 2 has been treated by Nintendo and how they, at least in my opinion, pretty much failed at keeping the popularity of that game alive. So now let's jump to a few things I think Nintendo could have done better in order to keep the game and its excitement alive for a longer period of time. The first point I'd like to address, and why I think Mario Maker 2 couldn't keep its popularity, is because of the way the game got updated during its lifetime. Mario Maker 2 received two major updates, the first one in December 2019 and the second one in April 2020, and don't get me wrong, those two updates were absolutely amazing. New power-ups like the Master Sword or the SMB2 Mushroom and new modes like the Ninja Speedruns or the World Maker are amazing new additions. However, there were only two major updates within 1 year, the last one coming not even a year after the game's release, and, at least in my opinion, that's unfortunately not enough to make the average player stick to the game in the long term. I personally feel like the game had so much more potential, which unfortunately hasn't been fully used. And no, I'm not referring to even more new items or power-ups. Of course, those would be great as well, but those definitely aren't necessary, as the ones we have already are more than enough. However, the way those new additions got implemented into the game is something I just can't understand, as it doesn't make any sense to me. But before we go into detail about the two major updates, let's quickly talk about the new things that have been added into Mario Maker 2 right at its release, because I know, some of you will probably disagree, but in my opinion the first mistake that has been made was already when Mario Maker 2 was announced, and the amount of new additions that have been revealed right off the bat before the game itself was even released. That may sound a little weird, but please listen carefully. Already in the first announcement trailer, we could see the 4 new level themes we got, being Snow, Desert, Sky, and Jungle, as well as some of their new nighttime variants, 14 new enemies, 11 new elements, and 3 new features for creating more unique levels, being Custom Scroll, Rising Water, and Clear Conditions. And on top of that, there was also the Mario Maker 2 Direct happening around a month before the game's release, which also revealed some new additions that weren't in the trailer, being for example Swinging Claws and the Scroll Stop ability. While all of these are definitely great and useful additions for creating awesome levels, I personally feel like revealing them all at once was way too much for the beginning. On the one hand, some new players may have been overwhelmed with all of this, as they didn't really know what to start making the levels with, but on the other hand, and more importantly in my opinion, revealing all of this led to less content for potential future updates. I personally think that Nintendo shouldn't have revealed that many of the new Mario Maker 2 additions at once, as some of them would have been great for updates in future. I mean, what if they would have shown only 3 of the new level themes before the game's release, for example, and the 4th one would have been kept as a backup for future updates? The outcome would most likely be the same. However, keeping some new additions as update backups would have probably resulted in more and consistent updates, which then hopefully would have motivated quite some people to stick to the game for a longer time, which then would have led to the game staying alive and relevant for a much longer period of time. And by the way, I personally think that the excitement before the game's release would have also stayed the same, even if not that many of the new additions were revealed right off the bat, since I guess most players were generally looking forward to the new Mario Maker sequel, and most players weren't even expecting that many new additions in the first place. That's why I think Nintendo should have kept some additions as update backups, instead of revealing them immediately. However, that wouldn't even be necessary, as that's not the only mistake that has been made in my opinion when it comes to the updates of Mario Maker 2, as, at least in my opinion, the two updates we've had also introduced way too many new additions at once. I know, this may sound pretty paradoxical, but please let me explain. Yes, I know. This is complaining on a very high level. I definitely appreciate both updates we've got for Mario Maker 2, as they introduced many great additions. However, the amount of additions they introduced at once was way too high for my personal taste. If we take a look at the second major update, for example, you can notice that this one alone already introduced 11 new elements. Even if you count the 3D World helmets, the 3 Mecha Koopa variants, and all Koopalings as one element each. And while these are all great additions, of course, I feel like it would have been smarter to separate them into several smaller and more frequent updates. Mario Maker 1, for example, had several small updates, the first one coming a bit more than a month after its release in November 2015, and those updates mostly didn't introduce more than 5 new additions. What if they would have made an update in Mario Maker 2 only dedicated to the newly added power-ups, for example, of which there were already 6, even if you count the 3D World helmets as one, and then another one for the new enemies, and so on. As previously mentioned, the outcome would probably be the same, however, separating all new additions into several small updates also would have resulted in more and consistent updates, which then would have as well resulted in the game staying active and alive for a much longer period of time. Alright, to quickly sum things up, in my opinion Mario Maker 2 had huge potential to actually become a huge banger game and cash grab for Nintendo. Mario Maker 1 already managed to become quite successful considering it being an exclusive Wii U game, and at least in my opinion Nintendo could have done much better with Mario Maker 2 by just properly updating it and consistently offering new content in order to keep it relevant and to extend its lifetime. Of course, I know that content updates are by far not the only way to keep a game and its community active. Consistently releasing new Ninja speedruns, for example, also would have had a positive effect on the game's lifetime. However, in this video I wanted to talk specifically about the updates of Mario Maker 2 and the mistakes that have been made, as at least in my opinion, that's also quite an important part, and it's also something that honestly annoyed and pretty much disappointed me. To me, honestly, it kind of seemed like Nintendo didn't even really care about Mario Maker 2 since its release, and as if they just wanted to push out all the new great additions, as otherwise I don't really see the reason why they, for example, decided to add 11 new elements in the last update while they could have easily separated into several smaller updates. And yes, I'll have to mention it again. The updates were amazing, don't get me wrong, but the amount of updates Mario Maker 2 received and how the game got abandoned by Nintendo that quickly is just something that really disappointed me and I still really can't get over with. Either way, thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. What do you think of the way Nintendo treated Mario Maker 2 and what would you have done differently? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up and a subscription would be appreciated as well. Thanks a lot for watching and see you next time. Bye bye!